Maybe you just screwed up. Shame on you to look me in the eye and just bold-faced try to fool me. I'm sorry. What did you just say to me?
It was loaded, Your Honor.
Sir?
It was not loaded, Your Honor.
You're looking at me and you just told me it was not loaded? Is that what this all is? A charade?
But no, Your Honor, it's not.
What I hear is you don't like being incarcerated. But these are violent crimes. You're looking at life imprisonment on each one.
This entitled Brad is facing 2 charges that each carry up to life in prison. And somehow he still thought lying to the judge's face was a good idea. The second those words left his mouth, the judge went absolutely nuclear on him. And honestly, I just don't blame the judge at all on this one. What really set me off is his family writing letters about how he's such a good kid when in reality he robbed 2 people at gunpoint. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. And then when you add in that smug attitude he had, it just makes this whole thing even harder to watch. Do you guys agree with his family and he's a good kid, or are you guys siding with the judge? Let's dive in and watch.
This is about accountability about what happened that day, right? You took that man's stuff and you went to try and take money from his debit card. You remember that?
Yes.
And it failed, right?
Yes.
And then you saw this 22-year-old lady, Miss Brooks, with her mother. You knocked her to the ground and you tried the same offense again, right?
She wasn't with her mother, but yes.
Still a 22-year-old lady, still somebody that you knocked to the ground, put a gun to her head, did the same thing again, right?
Right.
And whenever all that takes place and the officers finally get going, their reports, which your lawyers had access to, and I'm assuming you've had an opportunity to review, say that you were going over 100 miles an hour in an effort to evade them, right?
I don't remember how fast my phone.
Definitely well in excess of the speed limit, correct? You're doing everything you could to get away from, right? Just like today, you're doing everything you can to try to make sure you get probation, as opposed to, I'm going to ask this judge to give you 15 years, right?
The parties have rested the presentation of evidence. The court has the pre-sentence report that has been submitted by the probation office and admitted without objections. Arguments by the parties. What are you asking for, please? State.
Judge, I think you know it's clear that I'm asking for the 15 years.
There's no argument, Your Honor, in reference to what he did to 2 innocent people or 2 innocent families. What you see in the PSI report, though, is that there really isn't any criminal conduct after or before or after that in reference to the legal system. You have marijuana use in the U.S. Army, but wait a couple of years and probably marijuana use is going to be illegal in most states. But he was discharged not honorably. So what do you do with a kid that doesn't know? And what we tried to do today is to try to present a little bit, and I don't know whether it's a cleaned up version or not, but basically he grew up by himself. Mom seems like a decent person, but mom had to be able to support herself and all her life. He's had no dad, no one, not even financial support in reference to him. We realized through the questioning of the state that he had some abuse problems in Maryland from family members who took advantage of it. And then in the middle of all this was ripped from whatever persons that he had some type of relationship in his senior year in high school and sent to the outskirts of Chicago. Even now, when he talks to the probation officer preparing the report, I think he was forthright in when he started marijuana, the synthetic marijuana, which is one time, which he says was at the date of the incident. But also what he was going through in reference to depression, anxiety, psychological and emotional, and asked, and which was probably one of the few times that I've seen, I expressed a need for treatment for these conditions. You could put him on deferred, and he's looking at life. You can put him on deferred for one, find him for robbery on the other, send him because of maybe what he's done in county jail, and I could then file for shock probation if he corrected himself, if it was robbery. and keep them on the hook after that in reference to probation. We've got people, the pastor here, Pastor Matthews, and conditions, and as this court knows, the problem is I guess a lack of parental, but then it's also the lack of young people today not knowing what a gun and everything else gets you in the road that it goes down. We're asking the court, if it's not deferred probation, that you would consider deferred and something with a lesser included, to give them a taste of TDC and maybe a ride on a bus to Huntsville for a little bit of time to know what it's really like when you commit an offense that's going to, I guess, affect you the rest of your life. And then see, hopefully, if he does follow the rules and regulations there, that he's given that second chance and put back on under your supervision, and also with the help of his family and his church.
I get that the defense attorney is just doing his job, but this argument just drives me crazy. Saying he didn't know any better, I mean, come on. At least argue that he was desperate for money or something, because that's just way more believable than pretending he doesn't understand the basics of right and wrong. I mean, everybody knows you don't just walk up to somebody with a weapon and take their stuff. I mean, it's just common sense. I really don't know why the attorney didn't go that route, but the fact that they're even trying this defense feels like an insult to the courtroom, honestly. Judges hear this kind of spin all the time, and most of them see right through it. If anything, it just makes a defendant look more entitled, like he thinks excuses will cancel out what he did. And when the crime is this violent,
the court finds most compelling is that in the commission of this crime, it's already been pointed out that you assaulted two people, and both of them were threatened and in fear of their life by you, who has no authority to do that. You don't take God's will into your hands. And when you have a loaded firearm, and it was loaded, wasn't it?
No, sir, it was loaded.
I'm sorry. What did you just say to me?
It was loaded, Your Honor.
Sir?
It was not loaded, Your Honor.
You're looking at me, and I'm about to sentence you and make a decision, and you just told me it was not loaded? All right, let me read the report to you. Maybe you just screwed up. Because, sir, this is your life. Underneath the Charger's driver's seat, you were in a Charger, right?
It's John.
On the floorboard, in plain view, was a dark brown Glock with a laser attachment, just like the lady said, underneath the barrel. The Glock had one magazine inside with 10 9mm rounds. Shame on you to look me in the eye and just bold-faced try to fool me? Is that what this all is? A charade?
But no, Your Honor. It's not.
You assaulted a woman, didn't have to. You assaulted a woman, had a loaded gun. What are you bringing a loaded gun to robberies for? Unless you intend to use it, sir. And then the man in front of his children, his little children, and the 1-year-old may not ever remember, but the 4-year-old, I remember when I was 4, certain occasions that were traumatic. We all do. You're the source of that horror for that child. Plus, again, you have a gun, and they really didn't know it was loaded, but when you point a gun at somebody and threaten them, they're going to assume their life is a clock's tick away. You have the power, which our Creator doesn't give you. You forced it on fellow humans, God's creatures. As we want to bring this up, how religious. You've been going to church for a long time, but yet you are here by a cacophony, a product of bad choices that defy your education in high school, that defy your upbringing and church going, that defy military. All of those are methods of helping people to make the best choices they can make. And after all of that, you put multiple people in harm's way. And it's certainly doesn't go without notice that the victims in this case want to see the justice, one of them at least has expressed, you need imprisonment. I haven't heard of really a thing in your from this evidence here that isn't seen in so many people generally. I mean, nobody's got a perfect upbringing. It seems there are a lot of people whose parents, one or the other, or both sometimes, are irresponsible, but yet they seem to do all right. They seem to follow moral lessons. And your family here, look at all these letters. They seem to be good guiding lights, but they don't know really the truth of your long-lasting decision to use drugs. A third of your life has been drug usage, a third. And they have never seen the Mr. Hyde side of your Dr. Jekyll. I know him to be a kind, loving, and intelligent young man. But you were almost a daily drug user that certainly tricked the people living in your house. They didn't know about it. And then to the probation office, you said you blamed your actions on smoking cannabis and synthetic marijuana. Your actions are based on poor choices. Drugs are out there. They're always out there. There's always a temptation on the dark side, but it's always good versus evil. But you were brought up in knowing the differences and choosing good versus evil.
Exactly. Finally, a judge calling out that nonsense instead of letting it slide. The whole "he's a good kid, he didn't mean it" argument. It's just nonsense when you look at the facts here. His family might actually think that. But good kids don't wake up and decide to rob people at gunpoint. I mean, that kind of crime takes planning, intent, and a willingness to traumatize strangers for life. I mean, these victims aren't just losing property. They're dealing with fear and anxiety every single time they walk outside now. And his defense attorney is trying to paint him as some innocent kid. It just makes it stink so much worse because these people are actually traumatized for their entire lives now. And I do think that's why the judge went so hard on him. He's not just punishing the crime. He's making it clear these excuses do not erase the damage. And honestly, it's just so refreshing to see a judge not sugarcoating the reality here. It was the kid's actions that put him here, not bad luck or circumstance. So, it's just refreshing to hear that. Do you think judges should ever weigh family letters in cases this violent, or should they stick strictly to the crime itself?
The environment I see here that doesn't cause you to have made a mistake and fix it immediately. Do right from wrong. I watched his grandmother help raise him in the church and instilled in him the love of God by taking him to church on a regular basis. He possesses compassion and love for others. The police reports of these two cases don't say that. You made horrendous choices, and in choices, bad choices, you have to pay for the consequences. Good choices, you get to enjoy success and celebrate. But here, this is no time for celebration because I see a life of poor choices that has been wasted up to now, for the most part. What I hear is now what's changed is you don't like being incarcerated, which is a smart move because unless you're sociopathic, I don't know who would. But these are violent crimes. You're looking at life imprisonment on each one, sir. And they're two separate crimes. So those could be added one to another under law because you can't package a deal when you commit multiple crimes. You don't pay for less. Each bad choice or crime has its individual consequences because there are individual acts of individual victims. Here, your attorney has fashioned with the state, has fashioned a limit where you have reduced your exposure for two violent first-degree felonies from life imprisonment to a maximum of 15 years in prison. And there's a big difference between 21-year-old and 17-year-olds who are in here. You have finished high school, you have been in the military, thereafter you made these poor choices. I just wish you could have listened to some of the role modeling earlier, because the genie is out of the bottle. You can't put the genie back when you commit a crime. You can't undo the wrong. You can't go to the victims and say, undo the trauma, please. Even in the worst occasion here, if you're sent to prison, you would be out well before you're 30 years of age, after essentially ruining the lives of at least two sets of people. Because I know what is told to me. They wake up with the horror of this experience their whole life, because they are not in control of their life. You were in control, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. We're all in this together. Live honestly, harm no one, give each person their rightful due. That's everything about law. And that's everything about religion. All wrapped up in those three concepts, which all three were shattered here by your actions. All right, I'm going to find in each of these cases you have pleaded guilty voluntarily. You were mentally competent to do so. You understood the consequences of pleading guilty. There was sufficient evidence supporting your guilty pleas from State's Exhibit 1 admitted in each of these cases. To support your guilty plea to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, I now find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in each of these cases. And I am following the agreements. You are hereby sentenced to confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice to serve a term of 15 years on each case to run concurrently. The judgment shall show an affirmative finding that a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, was used in the commission of each of these crimes. Anything else?
No.
We are in recess on this case. No.
Oh, they just left.
There was, and a third case is pending. I have just dismissed that case.
Thank you.
The so-called good kid just got hit with 15 years in prison for 2 separate aggravated assault charges with a deadly weapon. And honestly, I do think he got off light. I mean, it's not like the lightest of all time. But when he's looking at life in prison on both charges, it makes me think he got off a little bit easy. I mean, and the fact that he even lied to the judge mid-hearing, and somehow the judge still showed compassion by sticking with the agreement. I mean, I do respect that balance from the judge. I mean, he gave him that stern lecture at first, then a sentence that actually means something. So it's just a good mix around. And like the judge said, yeah, it was 15 years concurrent, which means he could be out before 30 with good behavior, which feels like a second chance most people wouldn't get after crimes like this. So that's kind of my reasoning with the light thing. It's kind of like one of those situations where the system gave him a shot at redemption even after all the excuses. So it's on him whether he takes it or not. It's all up to him. But I want to hear from you guys. Do you think